Could you please tell us why education is so important for Guyana's future and development?
Education is important for every facet of life, for me and for my government. To start with, it is the basis of equality. I believe we should have a more egalitarian society. I believe that the distinction between the coastland and hinterland should be erased. The distinction between rich and poor should be erased. The distinction among ethnic groups should be erased. And the distinction between genders should be erased. So I think education is a great equalizer. And I'm very confident that if all Guyanese were exposed to the same quality education, we'd have a more happy society, happy households, happy communities. So above everything else, I think education guarantees equality. It is also, in my view, important for employment. If you're uneducated, it's difficult to get a job or to be employed, to be self-employed. Especially nowadays, we live in a very competitive world. So I think educated nations and educated people will stand a better opportunity, better chance to have, to reach prosperity, to have a good life. It's also important, I think, for the economy that if you have a lot of educated people, it means that there'll be an opportunity for technological development and industrial progress. Whereas if you don't have an educated population, it means that the country is likely to be backward. So, in a nutshell, if I can call it that, in a nutshell, those are three good reasons why I would say education is important to me, to my government, and to the country, and to the next generation. I grew up in Bartica, and then I moved to the Quarantine, and then I came to Georgetown. So I actually went to 4 primary schools, public primary schools, of course. At that time, a long time ago, the public school system was largely in the hands of the Christian churches. So I started off at an Anglican school, then I went to a Church of Scotland school, which is now Presbyterian, then I went to a Moravian school, then I went to a Catholic school. So my primary education exposed me to various religious denominations. Then I went to Queen's College, which at that time still is a public school. Then I went to university, and then I went to university overseas in Trinidad and Tobago and in Maryland. So I would say that my education was quite varied by Guyanese standards, horizontally and also vertically. It gave me adequate exposure to the Caribbean and to North America. So I would say that it prepared me well for the position I now hold. And I think more Guyanese should have an opportunity, especially while they're young, to have education or to attend primary school in different parts of the country. And I think that is one of the functions of the education system, particularly the public education system, so that students could be exposed to children from different backgrounds. Again, it is a great equalizer, and you can understand children from different regions better, I think, through the public system rather than the private system.
What is your vision for education in Guyana, and what will that mean for each young person?
My vision is simply a completely educated nation. Every child in school is my motto. I would like to see everyone exposed to primary and secondary education at least. When I was young, it was typical for persons to rely on a sound primary education to go into the police force or even some branches of the public service. That's no longer good enough. I think we must aim at having people educated at least up to secondary level. And I would like eventually to ensure that people have access to tertiary education. So my vision is that every Guyanese eventually should have exposure to all 3 levels of education, primary, secondary, and tertiary. And I think this is the pathway to developing an education nation and to having an industrialized nation, a technologically savvy nation, So, as I said, every child in school, that is my motto, and I have taken over the last 4 years lots of initiatives to improve access to schools, so the children living in riverine areas, children living in places which are distant from the school system should be given access. That's why I started what was the 3B system, providing buses, free buses for children to go to school, free boats, and lots of bicycles. Right now there are about 30 buses on the roads. There are about a dozen boats in the rivers, and over 1,200 students have gotten free bicycles to help them to get to school, because this is my belief that every child should be in school. So that is a start, and attendance is important, and also achievement. That once it's a 3A system, access, attendance, and achievement. Once you get to school, I would like to see children doing well. I don't want education to be used as a divisive force to separate, bright from dull students. I think every student who gets a good education should look forward to doing well. A sound education would be the basis for equality. So I believe in the 3A system. I want to get children to school. I want to improve the quality of teaching. That's one of the reasons why a couple of years ago I changed the program from one laptop per family to one laptop per teacher. So thousands of teachers now have free laptops, and they will be able to teach their children. And eventually I would like to see in every classroom children, getting away from blackboards and using computer screens and distance education. If you're in Lethem or Mahdia or Mabaruma, you should be able to do your classes at the University of Guyana through distance education. And I would like to provide greater access through technology and through physical means of transportation to get children to school too.
The recent National Grade 6 assessment results are out. What was the highlight for you, and what does this mean to you?
Well, this is a very important event in children's lives. People work hard to get good results, almost as if it's a make or break event. I don't think it is. Some children have done very well, and I congratulate them. I congratulate the teachers, I congratulate their parents. But it must be a normal part of the education, and I feel that it shouldn't be used to divide children between bright and dull. That's not the purpose. I feel that the government over the last 4 years has been able to raise a large part of the student population out of the danger of becoming what they call NEETs, not in education, employment, training, NEET. So we have fewer failures, fewer dropouts. At one time, in the early 2000s, children were dropping out maybe 3 or 4 a day from the schools. Now the dropout rate has fallen. So NGSA for me is, I won't call it a leveler, but it has shown that fewer children are failing absolutely. More children are doing well in mathematics, although I'm not happy with the results with English, science, and social studies. More children are doing better. It's a question of better qualifications for a greater number. So it's a good lesson. It means that the government's program is working to get children off the streets and into schools. And I'm confident that the amount that we've invested in education has started to pay dividends, and will do better in years to come. So I'm not worried about the results. I think that we're on the right path, and we've invested over $172 billion over the last 4 years. This is more than we've spent on any other single sector in government. So we have put our money where our mouths are, and we're on the way to developing an education nation. And I'll continue spending money on education because this is the most important public service we could provide to our citizens.
What were the main educational challenges when you took office?
Dropouts, too many NEETs, too many children not in education, not in employment, not in training. And that's one of the reasons why we provided the boats, buses, and bicycles to get children to school. That's a big challenge. There's also a challenge of teaching staff. And I've personally gone up to Sierra Potter College of Education. I've personally directed the provision of computers for teachers. And I'm doing everything possible, financially possible, to help the teaching profession and to help schools which have programs for STEM. We have provided, I think year before the last, right here in this hall, about a dozen schools were given $1 million each to develop their IT laboratories. So that is the direction that we're moving towards. And again, I feel it will pay dividends. It has started to pay dividends. And we're overcoming the challenges of the dropouts. We're overcoming the challenges of people's willingness to go into the teaching profession. We had last year, as you know, a high-level committee on the teaching profession. So we're making things better for teachers who were getting maybe about $30,000 in 2015 are now getting about $60,000. It's almost double. The lowest paid teachers are now much better off. And we will continue to work with the teachers union to make sure that the issues facing teachers are dealt with. Those of us who have had an opportunity to go around the regions would know that teachers' accommodation is very important. Many teachers are married, they have children, and they might be unwilling to serve in the hinterland. We want to make life more comfortable for them. So in every respect, children's access to schools, the way teachers are treated, the provision of information technology, the improvement of schools too. We've improved about 100 schools. We've built new schools and we've improved the facilities in schools, rural and hinterland schools particularly. So these challenges are gradually being overcome, and I expect that they will continue for a little while, but we are making a lot of progress with the physical infrastructure and the human input by teachers.
What are the top 3 education achievements of your government that you are most proud of?
First of all is the attentiveness to the teaching problem. We feel that we now have a happier core of teachers, and it's important because the teachers mold the nation, they mold the students, and we've done well to resolve some of the problems affecting teachers. Secondly, we have stabilized some of the infrastructure problems, particularly in the hinterland. This is the result of deliberate policy action by the government, that children can now feel happy in going to a nearby school. They don't feel that they're getting a low second grade education. And I know instances in Essequibo Coast, and you'd find that there are about 4 or 5 regions in which all of the top students have gotten to the top 5 schools. Well, I hope one day we won't be speaking about top 5 schools, we'll be speaking about top 10 schools. Every region should have a top school, an A-grade school, so people can stay within the regions. They don't have to come to Georgetown to attend a Queen's College or a Bishop's. That's important, that we should erase the distinction between the so-called top schools. I know an instance I was about to tell you, with many parents that in Essequibo Coast, whose children qualify for a top school, keep their children in Anna Regina or in Essequibo Coast. They don't say, don't wait to come to town, you'll get a good education in the region. I think that's one of the achievements I can be proud of, that people are prepared to stay in the regions and don't feel that they have to come to town to get a good education, that we've been able to provide quality education in the regions.